Okay, everyone. So, welcome once again to the Leading Change webinar, about the youth-led feminist activism for gender transformative education research webinar. Before we start, we want to take this moment to read a land acknowledgement and honor the original inhabitants of where we are right now. So I am located on the traditional and ancestral land of the Massachusetts, the original inhabitants of what is now known as Boston and Cambridge.
And I am the unceded and unsurrendered Indigenous the Lenapes.
We invite you now to pay respect to the people of the land where you exist, past and present, and honor the land itself, which remains sacred to their people.
We also invite us to take a moment to honor and be in solidarity with those who are experiencing gender backlash, human rights violations, gender-based violence, or living in conflicts and crises around the world. Today, we will learn how young feminists are pushing back against this backlash and are creating change in their communities. So hello, everyone. Welcome. My name is Natasha, she, her, and I lead youth movements and feminist leadership for UNGAI. And I'm here with my sister in solidarity, Alejandra, who is the coordinator of Transform Education, which is a young feminist movement working to progress gender equality in and through education, which just turned 5 years old this year. And together, we will be co-facilitating our time today. On behalf of the co-organizers, the University of Windsor, Transform Education, Plan International, Transform, and UNGAI, we thank you for joining.
We also invite everyone to ensure to know that this will be a brave space rooted in respect. Some recommended community norms are to stay present in a way that responds to your individual needs, engage with the webinar, and actively listen to the leaders presenting today. We also welcome you to ask questions in the Q&A box that you will see there, which is on the bottom of the screen. And for our agenda, we will learn more about the research that took place, watch some of the digital stories, and hear from the activists. There will also be a Q&A session at the end, so please don't forget to write in your questions. And we will now pass the online mic to Dr. Catherine Vanner, Assistant Professor of the at the University of Windsor.
Hi, thank you everybody so much for joining today. This is such an exciting moment that many people have been working hard to get to. I want to share a little bit of background context about this project before we get started with our amazing youth participants who are going to be presenting its findings. The Leading Change project is a participatory project that was designed in partnership with Transform Education, and a particular shout out to Ashley Burnett, who you're going to hear from later, who's integral in the design. We also had strategic input from Plan International as a collaborator with Yona Nestel and Melina Detree, providing strategic input. We've then really embraced coming with UNGAI later on to work a lot on knowledge mobilization, getting at these findings. We had 12 participants in this project who were all members of the Transform Education Coalition. And our real goal was to understand youth experiences of activism for gender transformative education and to see how they could be better supported in getting their messages and stories out into the world. So we had a methodology that started with focus groups where we asked about their stories, all virtually. You can see from the map where we have people joining from, really all over the world, a truly transnational project. I was supported in this by my amazing research assistants, Meenal Singh and Valerie Alexander. And then after we started talking to the youth about their stories, we worked with them one-on-one to create 10 amazing digital stories, 3 of which you're going to see today. And then we had closing focus groups where in our small groups, the participants screened their stories, and then we talked as a group about their implications. Making sure that the participants really had a say in validating the analysis of the research, we then had 2 conversations where we talked about the initial analysis and kind of expanded upon what we'd seen as a research team from the findings that were coming out. So it is my great pleasure now to have some of the youth participants from this project be the ones to share the results of this project with you. We're going to start with 3 digital stories who are going to be presented by Mai, Joanne, and Marietta. Each of their stories are going to be shared, and then we're going to have a Q&A where you can ask our digital story creators a little bit about their stories. So please, as you're watching the stories, get your questions ready because you'll be able to ask them of our Leading Change participants after you see their story. So I'll now invite us to watch our first story.
When I was a kid, my inspiration and assignment for the first day of school turned out to be my first life milestone. No matter how grown up I am, my passion for education remains crystal clear in my mind. But on the first day at school, when I stepped into the classroom, a teacher asked me whether I was a girl or a boy, and then whether I should sit with the girl or the boys, because I did not wear a skirt, which was the school uniform. There was a loud laugh from the whole class, and later on, my classmates kept harassing me and bullying me. Shockingly, they sometimes followed me to the restroom, as they wanted to know how I used it. This experience has been a nightmare for me many years. Along my journey to adulthood, I came across the word feminism on social media. My curiosity was aroused to learn more about this movement and concept. However, I was reluctant to call myself as a feminist at that time because it was seen as extreme and radical. However, through my work with a local organization, building capacity for gender equality in education, and I also work with the feminist college in a supportive environment, I start to learn more about gender equality and the value and the history of feminism. And also like joining the Transformative Education Network brought further inspiration since I got to connect with other feminists around the globe, feeling a sense of solidarity and becoming part of something bigger than myself. Now, I proudly call myself a feminist and I can identify my gender identity with pride. My core feminist value is justice for all people, regardless of the identity factors including gender, sex, age, sexual orientation, or religion. As I step into my career in the gender and development field, I seek to go beyond the established gender script. Gender equality in education is not just about equal number of boys and girls, but it is about a safe environment for all students to enjoy learning, regardless of their gender identity and whether they want to wear a skirt or a pant. The feminist journey and my childhood experience have been like a roller coaster, but I'm still inspired and hopeful for the next generation. I believe that if we all truly invest our commitment and collective support, we will thrive together, living free from the patriarchy. My message for my younger self and the other younger is, we don't just say it, we stand there with you. You all are valid and belonging.
There are still places in Nepal where women are deprived of basic rights and health knowledge. Growing up, I always wanted to be initiator of change and normalize stigmatized topics like mental health, menstruation, and sexual and reproductive health and rights in my surroundings. In 2018, I started my activism from the student-led organization SITL, which focuses on dignified menstruation by volunteering on their school health project. We started sessions focused on building adolescent school children's leadership skills while providing menstrual health and hygiene sessions and helping them to form small peer groups for promoting menstrual health while developing communication skills. We also collaborated with experts, inviting them to present in the schools and linking students with adolescent-friendly service and helplines. During the pandemic, I was engulfed in mental and emotional issues. I realized that I could use my experience and knowledge to help other individuals to improve their mental health and well-being. With the SITL team, I planned virtual mental health well-being project which created a closed, safe space for experience sharing and discussion among 30 participants. We got positive feedback and began working on extension of this project. I believe that activism is creating small impact in your surrounding. I started a school awareness program on mental health well-being, eye donation and SRHR targeting the young population of my country. Meanwhile, I got the chance to be a mentee with the Dear UNESCO Education Mentorship Program, where we had a like-minded team of 5 mentees from London, India, Bangladesh, Kazakhstan, and me in Nepal. We are planning our dream project, which will focus on dignified menstruation and related mental health issues. It will be implemented across the team's countries, building on the SITL experience in Nepal. In the mentorship program, we are being coached on sustainable project development and management. We are pitching the project and getting feedback. The resulting impact evaluation will identify the top 3 projects that will get funding and the top 20 projects that will continue to be supported by mentorship during the program's duration. As a public health student, I learned about spreading awareness and to always look for ways to support the sustainable and healthy living of my community. My professional and personal journey is contributing and impacting on public health. My message to all potential changemakers is that activism starts by helping the person next door rather than waiting for a big platform to get started. By taking small steps, you can have a big impact.
In 2012, I lost my childhood best friend, who I loved so much. She was called Gufasha Morin. She was married at 13 to a 62-year-old man who gave her family 2 cows in exchange for her. Because she was so young, she could not speak up for herself. She died in childbirth. She was the person I always shared my dreams with. We dreamt about transforming our lives and community. I dreamt of becoming an environmentalist, and she wanted to be a doctor to help girls and women in our community. But right now, she was no more. Over the next years, I was always struggling, going through mental breakdowns, feeling guilty that I wasn't able to stand up for her and prevent her marriage. In 2016, I pulled myself together to act in memory of her. I wanted to see other girls be empowered. If she had been empowered, she never would have accepted this marriage and she would still be here. While joining university, I started going door to door and teaching families about why it is important to educate girls. I also began reaching out to girls in my community, informing them about their rights and creating safe spaces for girls who didn't have anybody to talk to. Girls share their challenges, like families who did not support their education or were forcing them into marriage. I helped them by working with a powerful woman leader in our community to get the police to intervene on behalf of the girl. At that time, I was very little and needed a powerful ally to make people listen. A few years later, I am the powerful woman leader and everyone listens to me. I wanted to reach out to thousands of girls, but I could not do it by myself. In 2016, I started the Gufashe Girls Foundation after the loss of my best friend. This organization brought together young people to stand up for girls' rights so that girls know how important they are and the potential they have within themselves. We provide skills training, guidance and counseling, and menstrual health products. I see transformation because of my advocacy. Communities are more supportive of girls' education. Girls who had been married, given birth, or been rescued from marriage are returning to school, even after being out for a long time. I see girls as powerful agents of change. I have been elected as a youth counselor in my community. I attend global conferences, meeting incredible people. I wouldn't be doing any of this if I wasn't educated, and that's why I advocate for gender transformative education. 129 million girls are out of school. We are losing the future leaders, doctors, and philanthropists. But girls don't just need to go to school. Education has to be supportive. My friend did not get the support she needed from school. Gender stereotypes allowed her to leave school without anybody advocating for her education. Gender transformative education requires everybody in the community and school to take responsibility for breaking barriers that limit girls' potential, including ending child marriage, and to empower girls instead.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing these powerful stories, testimonies of leadership, strength, vulnerability. I saw all the hearts, all the clapping, so I think I could say that we're all very inspired and thankful for this. We are going to move now to the Q&A section of this webinar. So just as a reminder, please write your questions in the Q&A box, which is at the bottom of the Zoom. And we're going to start. So I will kick this off with a general question for our three leaders. And let me see, I'm going to see who's there first. I might just go in the order as I see you there. So the question for the three of you, just to get us started, is really thinking about when you started sharing this and when you were first approached about this project, what inspired you to share this story? And perhaps we could start with May.
Yes. Thank you, Eliana. Can you hear me well? Okay. Yes, that's good. I think I have like two main inspiration for that brought me into that project. Is the first one, I really love this project because of the way that I can amplify my voice I believe that my story, I cannot say like it's gonna be like represent the whole community of LGBTQI plus, but this is, I believe like this is one of the way that somehow some people can relate to, or this is yes, we feel each other. And the second inspiration for me is like I want to unpacking this harmful social norm that we have been living with, especially most of the norm, most of the concept, it just like brought into the binary perspective that we have to follow, and the script, it is about being woman, being man, that you have to behave in that or those way. But this is not really the truly of diversity and inclusion, the concept. And this is like, I think this is the really the main inspiration for me. It's just like I want to be the first, not the first one, but also one of the other activists and the other great leader out of the world to start to break this barrier and amplify our voices together. Yes.
Thank you so much for sharing
Yes,
that.
Penny.
I think, your story speaks to a lot of people all around the world. So we're really thankful for that. And I wrote in your video that it says we stand there with you, right? So that power of being with each other. Yeah. So Marietta?
So for me, the first inspiration to tell story was like growing up in Nepal. I have seen like how badly this stigmatized topic has infected to yeah, affected strong people especially. So it motivated to take action. And while secondly, while making this digital story, it reinforced my belief that a small step actually create a huge impact. And so yeah, that inspired me to tell story to others, like you can start your change making journey in very tiny steps, like very smaller steps than you have imagined. So that's all.
Thank you so much. Yes, thinking about how does impact look like, right? And how is it different? I also wrote from your story saying starts by helping the person next door. I really, really love that. And last but not least, Joan.
Okay, thank you so much for the question. I think I would briefly say that what inspired me is most times, most times when we talk about the issue of child marriage, most times we just want to relate with the general statistics that we always see that is being put out by these big big organizations, but then we really have to bring out the point that these statistics are coming right from the community, and these are the statistics of child marriage goes beyond just the numbers. It's about the real lives of girls being affected. So what inspired me to really bring out this story, no matter how emotional it gets me every time I speak about it, I wanted to show the world that this is really happening. And just as Miranda said, that change starts, by you. It starts where you are. And I wanted to challenge these traditional norms in my community, to see that girls are able to stand up, to see that girls are in schools, are not just going to school every day, but how safe and how supportive are these schools to these girls. I advocate for gender transformative education because this is the point. Girls do not just have to be in the classrooms, they have to be supported, they have to be nurtured, they have to be empowered, they have to be given that safe space. So basically, my inspiration comes from just as I am the first graduate in my community and my family. It's not that I take pride in it, but I want to see people, parents, communities, the world coming together to put girls at heart, to put their education at heart. If it needs funding, if it needs supporting even only one girls' education, if it needs providing, those safe spaces, that would really, really be amazing. And that's where the change has to start from. So yeah, that's where my inspiration came from.
Thank you so much. Yes, bringing awareness to our realities, right? And that students and girls deserve high quality education. So I really, really appreciate that. Thank you, Joan. We're gonna move into that Q&A that I see people dropping there in the Q&A box. I would encourage our attendees to, add some questions, perhaps like very related to the stories, right? To those powerful stories that we heard, thinking about what else would you want to learn about that. I'm gonna go with a question that talks about your journeys of this project, okay? And perhaps we could go, whoever would like to respond first, or if not, we can go the other way around. And the question is, reflecting on your journey of this project, how has it changed you and your approaches to your work, if at all? Who would like to start? Perhaps if we go the other way around, Joan? Yes, thank you.
Um, I think what I would say that this story was really so eye-opening. The project, the Dictor Stories project, was really eye-opening, and it really made me feel like this is my story, and whatever I'm doing is because of my story. Or maybe if I hadn't lost my best friend, I wouldn't be doing this. I wouldn't have realized that child marriage is impacting girls in my community around me. So this story brought out that aspect of me believing in it, believing in my story, believing in my journey, and also believing in my activism. Because if this story, like where we are right now in this webinar, if a young person out there listens to this story and gets inspired and starts doing change, I think that is one of the wins that I would take in. Because most times as young people we undermine our potential. We just think that bringing about change in our communities has to be like, oh, I have these big resources. I'm so much educated and empowered. So if my story lands to someone who's really desperate to do some kind of work to bring about change in their communities, but they do not know how. If that young person can listen to this story, and of which I have really shared this story with some of my friends from all over the world, and they have really been inspired by this work. I've been connected through this story. I've been connected with some two ladies from Tanzania who when they listened to it, they told me, we really want to do this. We've always thought about it, but we don't know how. But because we listened to your story and they looked at my social media and they reached out to me. So we had conversations on how they can start on this, they can embark on this journey. So basically, that's how this project. Oh,
Thank you,
okay.
Joan. I think there you go. We
Oh,
lost you
yeah.
for a brief moment.
Yeah, I was just concluding that this is how this project, the Dictor Stories, has really, really touched my work and also impacted my work in a certain way. Because I'm an activist, and my activism, I do not honestly want my activism to end in my community. I want my activism to empower, to inspire fellow young people. And I have seen those two ladies coming to me and inquiring, and we've had these meetings. Oh, how can we do this? How do we approach this? We see you work at grassroots, you do this. How do we do this? And I've seen them come up with plans for their initiatives, and I'm really excited to see how their work goes on.
Thank you. The power of connection and inspiring others, right? And how they impact us and stop here and it just keeps going. Thank you so much. Who would like to continue? Marietta or May?
So I like to agree with Zoe as well. So talking about my journey of this project, like it changed my perspective of working in more community-driven project, perspective of seeing the things, and perspectives of taking steps. So it got me a new place to explore more opportunities, as I always talk about funding. So how the youth-led organizations can work without funding, how we can collaborate for funding. So it actually changed approach to me, not only focusing on the um, solution driven things, but we can start doing our work by holistic approach, like collaborating with others, yeah, for funding, or just to empower the community people to turn them into a trainer. Because as I have speaked about the Dior project, so after that we only could make up to a top 7 there. But after a year, like we currently working on same project with the funding, education shift power. And so we are done by community approaches there, and we made our dream project into reality. So it changed my perspective of approaching and working due to this project. And while making this project, what I feel was like I have done something that actually matters, so I can continue by doing more things, like just going in the approaching a small classroom and talking about the mental health well-being, which can actually make a significant change. Like, okay, we can talk about this, or we can go and ask about peer. So I think whatever our occupation, whatever our background, we just can get knowledge from available website, authorized website, and go there and speak about it, or make a closed space, free space, safe space to everyone to speak there. And that's all.
Thank you. Very, very powerful. And I keep seeing hearts and hands and everything. So I think a lot of people are connecting and definitely being inspired by what you all are sharing. May, would you like to respond to this question?
Yes, I think like I also like can relate to some of our friends that have mentioned as well. And one of the things that I want to add on is about a sense of belonging during our focus group discussion. I remember like during our group FGD, those we come from the different countries, but when we share our story, we somehow feel relate to each other. And also like one of the another reflection that I learned from that is like the commitment that the Catherine and also like our group member put together to make it to make sure like it is very safe space, and it is very a brave space that we can narrate our own story without any judgment, without any discrimination. And what we get is very, very supportive from the team. And this is what it's keep me, like keep me very reflexive on that. Yes. And then it made me feel like this is what we need to do. Like no matter like where you are from, no matter which region that you are live, what we have to do is we need to like support each other, collaborate with each other. Like this is not a space that we should like compete with each other, or to stand on the space of each other. And one thing that I have learned during that journey as well is like I believe in one of the feminism principle is like it's a personal is political. No matter the thing have changed or whatever happened, it very personal to us at some point. That's why I think like I have grown a lot from that project, and it's kept me, inspired. No matter how sometimes, like things happen around the world, you see like some of the backlash that even though it's not happened to me, but it happened to my people on that world, right? So it keep reminding me what I have to do as an individual, or as the role in my work that I can do in order, to promote really, when we say the gender equality, it is about the gender justice, and it is about the transformation. And this is what, yes, it kept me inspired on that after the project. And one thing that I would like to say as well, I think like this project have, brought the bigger way of working, especially about the evidence-based. Normally, I think this is one of the things that I like about the project. It is more than just, tick the box that you have done that task, but it is about the journey that we grow together. And Catherine is very supportive, and the team as well, keep asking any support that you need, anything, keep follow up and give us technical support or any support that we have to do. And this is, I feel very warm, and this is inspire me, like to put my commitment, my love when I work with my people, with my, people at my work and thing as well. And I think like this is what we should have uh, brought, opening the perspective and the way of working as well, like not just only tick the box, click on the data or the number, but it is more like the journey that we go together. Yeah, I think that's all for me.
Thank you so much, May. Yes, I think yeah, listening to a lot of connections. I loved how you mentioned about this is not a competition, right? Why are we doing this? What is the purpose, the meaning, and how can we support each other? I know, let me see, I'm looking at time. We want to make sure that we get through all of our of our webinar. Perhaps, let me see. I know we have some really good questions, so I might like just bring it together, and then if there's someone who wants to respond to that. So we have the question from Nepali and then from Shai, and I think May actually just talked a bit about this first question. So, just the last, kind of like the last question, making it very short and sweet, thinking about this process, perhaps like who facilitate, were there some challenges? And then thinking about your own community, is there any like person, adult community members, or someone that played an important role in your journey? So kind of thinking about the process, were there any challenges, and then someone who supported you. Would someone like to go? Maybe we can have, yes, maybe Marietta. So we have you starting this time. Thank you.
Okay, so yeah, thank you for question. So while documenting my stories, I think Catherine has facilitated the process very well, because she was like choosing the picture like this will goes with will and this and that. And talking about my journey, I started my voluntary journey from youth-led organization called Sky's the Limit, Asimit Udan. So that organization actually made my wings very stronger, like who am I today. So they actually helped me, like they involved me in their very first school health project, to working with them in different stigmatized topic, and to explore, like talking about my more journey, so to explore international opportunities. I must say like Ongai Transformative Education really helped me a lot. So yeah, SITL, and I mainly say the president of SITL, Pooja Sharma, who always believed me and like, okay, if you are saying this, we can try this. And she always supported me in my journey. And talking about international opportunities to be a part of this project, I must say transformative education Ongai really helped me to shape my more knowledge.
Thank you so much, Marietta. Would anyone else like to respond to this question? I know this is our last question. I see some questions in still in the box, so perhaps if you feel comfortable, perhaps some can like reply or type the answer in the actual box. But this would be our last question for this like part before we go to the next part of the webinar. So May or Joan would like to answer this?
Okay. Yeah, for the question about people or other community that supported my work, um, I think I would say that I I am a grassroots feminist. I work directly with girls and their communities, and one thing that I would say is that working with the community goes beyond you as a person. I have been able to receive support from local leaders. I've been able to receive support from fellow young people who came on board and, they were like, you know what, we are doing this with you. So their support really did so much and still does so much for me. I work with a team of young people, both um, girls and boys. So I think I would say that the young people, the local leaders, the religious leaders, I work as an organization. We work with different stakeholders as long as these are in the community. And also I am part of feminist movements. I am a member of the Transform Education, and this is a community that has really empowered me so much. I think I joined like 2 years ago, but I've really learned so much from them. I've connected with fellow feminists from around the world, people who are doing this work, who are advocating for gender transformative education. And the lessons that I've learned from them have really helped me shape my work. I have met Natasha. She's really, really amazing. And the entire Transform Education community, Ange. So it's more of a community that of people that has really supported me throughout and that is still supporting me as a person, as an activist, as a leader.
Thank you so much. And last but not least, maybe May, if you have anything else to add, and then we can continue.
Oh, wait.
Oh, we can.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you. Um, I think I also like quite similar with uh both of our friends mentioned as well. And one thing that I want to add is like for me, I think everyone have been my inspiration and play the key role in my life, especially for for our ancestor and for our families who dedicate their life in the bad times, sacrifice to fight for women rights to vote on the first back previous year. This is one of when I read their story, that one of really things inspired me the most. And also like I also mentioned in my video as well, I think Anga is also part of the movement that inspired me as well. When I joined the with the Anga, the Transformative Education Network, and I met families from around the globe sharing their story, sharing the work that they are doing, especially, like the commitment, that the effort that they put into, no matter like up and down happening, and they still continue with that. And this is what it kept me inspired. And yeah, I believe like everyone, yeah, all of you guys in the webinar played a key role in part of it. Yes.
Thank you, May. And that's actually a great connection to our next section. So once again, thank you to our panelists for sharing your expertise, for sharing all your wonderful stories. And I believe a strong takeaway is that there is power, right, in community. There's power in solidarity and learning from each other and being inspired by each other. And we really want to invite all of you who are here in this webinar to think about your context, to think about your communities and how you can do this important work in a way that feels right to you and that feels right to those of you, to those who are with you and you in your community. We will now continue to learn more about the leading change research findings, and these will be presented by Esther.
Hi everyone. Hi. Good afternoon from my end. My name is Esther, and I would be sharing sorry, I lost my internet connection for a bit, but can everyone hear me, please?
We can hear you now.
All right, thank you. So I'll be sharing our findings on gender transformative education. One thing we spotlighted as a collective was the fact that most of us from different backgrounds, from different places in the global south, we highlighted things in common, and most of those things are eliminating gender-based violence in schools and discrimination. We noticed that regardless of the context we were speaking from or the experiences that we had, we noticed that gender-based violence was very prevalent in schools. And even when this gender-based violence happened outside schools, it still affected and impacted girls' access to education. And we wanted stakeholders to know that our demands are our call to action is to eliminate gender-based violence in schools and discrimination generally against minority persons, from girls living with disabilities to girls experiencing different forms of crisis or living in different areas of crisis. We wanted more attention to be placed on this situation. Another thing we spotlighted was that we need new systems to embrace substantive change. So we noticed that a lot of the ways that education has functioned from even the past to now has been the same, and it's not encouraging girls and women to go back to school or to continue their education. We want to see more young faces putting out policies. We want to see young people in these spaces and also making decisions and even providing solutions to the issues regarding education. Finally, we also highlighted that we wanted intersectional and intersectoral analysis. This means that we noticed that most of the issues regarding discrimination and violence affect diverse group of young girls accessing education. So this means that these diverse identities, these are diverse needs requires different stakeholders to be involved. It requires different sectors to come together to provide solutions and work together, because we know getting girls into school and also getting girls to stay educated requires the conscious effort of everybody, regardless of the sectors that they work in, to work together to tackle those intersectional problems that we have highlighted, from making schools more accessible for students living with disability, to considering students who have um, diverse identities, to students who are living in areas that are undergoing crisis. We needed everybody to work together to put girls back in school and make sure that girls stay in school. So these are the highlights of our research and our conversations on the gender transformative education. I'm going to be passing it on to another activist and someone that is very inspiring, Nga.
Thank you, Esther. And hello, everyone. My name is Nghe. And to delve into some harsh realities of youth activism, I want to start with a quote that I found deeply resonate with. So, what can I say in 5 minutes that will be impactful enough to actually sway stakeholders and take meaningful action? You just end the event and move on without hearing back. So these 5 minutes mentioned is the time given to youth participants when they were invited to give a speech or to present at an event. And in some cases, young activists are given a script to deliver, and or maybe they have their words edited. So we have to really raise the question to these kinds of youth participation. Is this really a meaningful participation or just a tokenistic one? So that the organizations, the well-known organizations, the well-established, the big organizations who claim to work with the youth can simply tick off the box without establishing any mechanisms for influence that has include youth voices. And this performative engagement not only happen in public events, but also private meetings. And so Damien also share how decision makers send delegates who only gather the information and cannot really commit to change. And this creates this cycle of frustration for youth who feel that they are unheard. So tokenism and performative engagement is one of the three key issues I want to highlight, which were identified by young activists also, and which could be found in the report. The second one is the intersectional barriers. Marginalized youth, such as LGBTIQ plus activists, they report feeling excluded even in the equity-driven spaces. For instance, described how binary perspectives and stereotypes make these spaces could be very unwelcoming. And the third one, and which is also the last one, is compromises and contradictions. Many organizations, while advocating for equality, they conform to societal norms, which could limit youth activists' ability to challenge the system. And I had an experience working with an NGO supporting girls' education. My colleagues and I, we were invited to deliver a training section on gender-based violence for 300 high school girls in the rural Vietnam. And I was asked to cover up my diatek to look more like a respectable role model. But what does that really mean to be a role model for the student? Isn't it being my true self, breaking stereotypes and social norms, contradicting with like hiding myself and trying to fit myself in this box, a fixed role model for respectable girls, the one who present as the teachers one, as the adults one, as how the society one. So this, I just feel like this experience and this kind of approach really undermines my identity and the very values of the gender equality that I want to fight for. So the key takeaway, to break free from the cycle, youth activism, we must challenge the oppressive norms and we have to embrace the inclusivity to demand mechanisms for real influence. And that mechanism has to ensure that the voices of all young people, and especially those on the margin, are heard and respected. Because if we don't speak to the root cause of the system and if we don't try to change it, then we will always circle in this loop forever and there is no way to get out. And for that, I would like to pass to Damien to present the next part.
All right. Thank you, Nga. Thank you, Esther. That was a very good presentation, a very good way to build on my slide on driving the agenda. So moving on, as a youth activist, as a young activist, I have seen firsthand how young people are driving the agenda for gender transformative education. And this section on driving the agenda specifically, it's a session which is presenting it's a presentation today which will not only highlight what we're doing, but also what we find or how we are finding the innovative ways to create the real change, even with the limited resources that we have. Now, one quote that I truly find and which stands out is from Esther in Nigeria, a fellow education transformer, but also a participant in Leading Change project, who also presented the slide on gender transformative education. Now, during the project, Esther shared how she and her peers faced significant challenges in accessing formal education or training to relevant trainings that were more relevant to the activism and what they were doing. Determined to make an impact, they turned to online resources to equip themselves with the skills which they needed. And as she explained, I quote, "We just went online. I cannot think of the courses I have taken off my head because there are so many, and we had to do that of our own hands at the beginning." When Esther was saying this, what she meant was that by this, they took online courses on topics like sexual and reproductive health rights, HIV care, and providing support for survivors of violence, including those affected by corrective rape. These were urgent needs in their communities, and they knew they would often be the first responders of such risks and such problems. So Esther and her team used these self-taught skills to provide critical resources. Now, this story captures not only the resilience and the resourcefulness of the youth activists like Esther, but also how we are stepping up to fill up the critical gaps in our communities, often without formal support or trainings or resources that we deserve, but we still do it. Looking at how we're driving the agenda and starting with the innovative approaches, we are not waiting for the perfect conditions. We are organizing from the grassroots campaigns using arts, storytelling, and even from social media push for change. These methods not only amplify our voices, but the messages are relatable to different audiences. Like Esther mentioned again, many of us had to figure out how to do these things on our own. Until today, this is now a personal journey for me, which I believe it's also true to everyone and most young people out there. I still go online and spend hours taking free courses like financial management and risk mitigation on Kaya and other platforms. It's challenging, yes, but it's also empowering to know that you can do something for yourself. We're looking at the tangible impact that we are giving. Looking back in our communities, we are seeing the results from the efforts like more girls being supported to return to school and marriages of uh, children being taken off the marriages and the childbirth. These are changes we are proud of because they impact directly the lives. Looking at the leadership models, Transform Education is one of the examples we are using to shape the leadership in the way that works for us. It's a youth-led, feminist, and collaborative, allowing us to take initiative while towards shared goals. Now, this is what it looks like when you're giving young people or youth to lead the way: resourcefulness, innovation, and relentless in the pursuit of better future. Now, moving on to the intergenerational support. Collaboration across generations has been one of the most powerful aspects of my journey as a young activist. And when we have the right support, our voices don't just get heard, they make the difference which need to make. Maya from Indonesia did share a powerful story during the project and the Leading Change project that deeply resonate with me. It mirrors my own experiences as a youth activist because Maya described the moment in her journey when she was just 15 years. She was invited to participate in a regional development planning meetings, but then she was the only child in the room full of adults, and many of whom were government officials. Despite her repeatedly raising her hand so that she can contribute, she was ignored. It wasn't until her youth mentor intervened that she got the chance to speak. Maya recalled, and I quote, "When I was 15, I was the only child in a room full of adults. My youth mentor passed the microphone to me, ensuring that my voice was heard." End of the quote. This act of mentorship and allyship was transformative. It not only highlighted her platform to share the perspective, but also demonstrated the power of adults using their own influence to influence young voices and young people. Maya's story highlights the importance of having mentors who actively create space for youth participation, especially in high-level discussions where young people are often excluded. It is in this moment of allyship that build our confidence, amplify our voices, but also ensures that our perspectives are heard in spaces where decisions affecting our futures are being made. We look at how effective funding can be in the mentorship. Many of us, myself included, we have had to learn critical resources like I shared project management and financial planning on our own. Mentorship programs can provide this guidance and would make a world a difference, not just for us, but they also impact which we bring, which we are creating for our communities. We are looking at how supportive the partnerships can be. I have experienced how intergenerational collaborations open doors, just like also Maya highlighted how they did pass a mic for her so that she can speak. When experienced mentors amplify our voices, It's not just symbolic, it's transformative. It gives us that seat at the table where decisions are made. And we need opportunities that are sustained, not a one off event. We need feedback on how our contributions are shaping the outcomes. And we need a capacity building and strengthening programs that would be more accessible to all youth, not just those privileged in cities and positions and just with some privilege. We're looking at some equitable engagement. What is needed is the authentic representation. If we're discussing issues like disability or refugee rights, the people with lived experiences who are refugees, who have disabilities, must be the ones speaking. This ensures that the conversation are grounded in realities and not just assumptions and theories. Now, as I wrap up my conversation, as I pass over to my colleague Farah, intergenerational support works best when it's about empowering youth-led. It's not just about participation. And together, I hope that we can create systems that genuinely reflect the voices and the needs of young people. I will pass now over to Farah, who will discuss about transform education, a model which I just presented above, which I also believe that it's an ideal model for us to take in regards to youth leadership. Over to you, Farah, and thank you.
Thank you so much, Damien. Hi, everyone. So my name is Farah, and I'll be just talking a little bit more specifically about transform education and what are the key things we discussed about transform education during the whole research process. So first, I would like to start with how we talked about how transform education kind of is a solution and a model for what we think youth-led feminist activism should look like. So while transform education, yes, is a coalition, we also see it as a movement. It is a global youth-led initiative which reimagines education as a tool for gender justice and transformation. And so it isn't just about access to education, but what Transform Education does is it actively challenges and dismantles this inequality and violence while trying to foster equity and intersectionality within education. Another thing that we also identified is how transform education operates on a flat hierarchy. So what this means and what this really looks like is how young activists, they have equal power in decision-making spaces and autonomy over their own projects and participation. So in DE, what that looks like is you have different working groups that are youth-led by different youth activists. And what they do is they have the space to lead their own projects, their own meetings, their own events, their own campaigns. And what DE has is not a supervisor or a manager, but a guiding group that essentially just tries to facilitate those projects and to amplify the voices of the people involved, the recommendations, and making sure that all of our feminist values, principles, and goals are heard and addressed within those events. And during these focus groups, we also discussed our experiences with DE and we talked a lot about radical sisterhood. So while the word radical seems daunting to most, but for us here at DE, what it means is a purpose-driven community to end the patriarchy. And we are all bounded together by our experiences, our joy, solidarity, and our shared commitment and perseverance in our advocacy. And I think my quote over here is a very strong reflection for, I can say at least me, and I'm sure other activists involved in DE and how we feel being involved and how we felt being engaged in this community and network that we're continuing to build. And so what DE does is it uses this youth-led, intersectional, and feminist approach that caters to young people and centers young people, particularly young women, girls, and non-binary youth as leaders in driving systemic change. And it is important to note that it isn't just youth-centered, but it is youth-led, and young advocates are at the forefront and catalysts of the change that they're bringing about for themselves and future generations. So gender equality, it is also important to note that gender inequality does not exist in isolation, but it also exists with other forms of marginalization, such as race and disability and climate injustices. And we can see this in the example of the DE activists of our own and the stories that you've seen here today, and how, while we may all have very vastly different experiences, we still have so many aspects that we connect on and so many goals that we're trying to achieve together in terms of gender transformative education. And so DE keeps gender transformative education at the core. And so the goal is not just to have more education, but better, safer, and more equitable education that addresses the root causes of gender-based violence. And this means many things. This means eliminating school-related gender-based violence, reforming curriculums to be gender responsive and intersectional, creating safe and inclusive learning environments, ensuring policy change at all levels, whether it's local, national, or global, and facilitating more capacity growing opportunities for the youth. And one thing to understand is that none of this works in isolation, and it's not working in silos. And we need this shift of gender transformative education across all sectors and institutions because it doesn't start and end in education. It doesn't start and end in school. There have to be systemic and intersectional solutions that start at home, that start in the street, that start in the media. And so gender transformative education is seen to be a root solution to addressing the patriarchy in other institutions around us. And so next I want to talk about is what support we have and what we've accomplished so far.
Yo, to you, man. Good
So
evening.
DE activists have
Yeah,
been
can
engaging in advocacy and creating feminist futures for a long time now. And the future is now, and it has been here for a long time. And so we've been able to accomplish so much together, but it isn't over yet. So, what we've done so far and what we continue to do is have a strong and expanding network of youth activists. We share strategies, share insights, experiences, and I feel like the Reading Change project is such a beautiful example of that because we've all come together to share our own unique experiences, our own unique stories, and kind of use that to just talk about what do we as activists need further and what else can we do. And so, what we also have is existing mentorships, partnerships, and collaborations. Being in a coalition, we have built relationships and networks. We have Plan over here too, and it's always been so wonderful working with them and other organizations as well. And what we also have is a space and a community that enables collective upliftment, solidarity, and healing. So, what do we really need now to strengthen and magnify what we've been doing so far? First of all, it's funding, and funding has to be flexible, it has to be sustainable, and it has to be youth directed. If you guys go on to see more of our stories, digital stories, in the link that I think has also been shared in chat, you can see that funding is one of the main concerns that most, if not all, youth activists have. And what we also need is investment in capacity strengthening to make sure that young people have the opportunity to learn, to grow, to develop professional experience, and to really engage in their advocacy in a and the world around them. And this also means having genuine and meaningful intergenerational partnerships, not just tokenistic representation, which is a challenge that Ga also talked about. And we need to uplift youth feminist activists, not just in terms of having them there for the sake of representation, but genuinely including them and hearing their needs and addressing their concerns. And now I will move on and pass it over to Marietta, who will talk about core recommendations that we've discussed to envision and create a gender transformative future using education. Marietta, over to you.
Hello. Hi again. So here are the core recommendations from Leading Change project. First of all, promote gender transformative education to eradicate gender inequity and connect forms of inequity in schools and position education as agent of social change. Second one is support youth-led organization to provide funding opportunities that involve mentorship and capacity building. And last not the least, but most important one is amplify the voices of young people to involve diverse group of youth like us and create sustained opportunity for influence with clear outcomes from our engagement. So I like to hand over to Natasha for further presentation regarding the recommendation and reflection.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much to each of you. I'm sitting here feeling so proud and honored to be able to collaborate with you. Over 5 years ago, as a young feminist myself, I had developed Transform Education just as a one-off campaign. And we had gotten over 500 responses from young feminists across the world. And it was so clear that there needed to be a sustainable young feminist-led coalition to exist. And how powerful and how humbled is it to see today that it is, and it is truly young feminist led. So we really, really thank you for your work and for powering through and for really ensuring that Transform Education is a transnational feminist brave space. So with that, speaking of Transform Education, I'm really honored to be able to introduce an essential partner and champion of Transform Education, who is Yona from Plan International. Plan International, through Yona's leadership, has been such an example of what intergenerational partnership looks like when it's meaningful, when it's funded, when it's really rooted in capacity strengthening. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to you, Yona. Thank you.
Oh my gosh, I was feeling pretty emotional before that introduction, and now I feel like I'm going to burst out in tears. I mean, I don't know about you all, but just listening to all the brilliant stories, perspectives, and recommendations um, is just so humbling and really is emotional, especially, given the state of the world right now. It really points to how important youth leadership is, and that young people are really driving change. I wrote down here, stories are powerful, stories create solidarity, stories create change. And I really do believe that for me and for all of us, one of the key takeaways from these recommendations and the Leading Change Project is that stories are important, valid, and necessary sources of evidence and data for formulating policies and making funding decisions. I think for too long, we've seen stories, particularly those from children and young people, as something nice, something kind of cute, something to maybe include as part of the opening remarks of a big of a big event, but not taken seriously as important sources of data. And so I think for me, that's one key takeaway from the stories and the recommendations. The other key takeaway that I'd like to share is that it's important to acknowledge that gender transformative education is something that children and young people value and want. They have seen firsthand how gender transformative education makes their schools and their communities safer and more inclusive places for them to thrive. And I think there's a lot of push for us to believe, especially right now, that gender transformative education and gender equality is a Western construct that's being imposed by the donor community. And that's simply not true. It is a local priority defined by young people. Young people, as I said, are truly leading change. It's the best title for the project. It's very, very relevant. They are often first responders in their communities, especially during times of crisis and emergency. I'm thinking about someone like Damien. There's so many young people on this call today that are first responders in their communities. And so it's essential that we fund them. They can't do their work without resourcing. And it's important that all of us advocate at all levels that youth-led organizations receive funding, and the funding is flexible and sustainable, not dribs and drabs of little money here and there that lasts for 6 months. We need sustained investment, and we need the resources to help these youth-led organizations grow and build. And then lastly, meaningful engagement and partnership with young people is non-negotiable. Every decision-making process from the local level to the global level has to prioritize youth experiences, perspectives, and recommendations, and in a non-tokenistic way. I want to see young people much more embedded in the governance structures of every major global organization and also in their community organizations, because we cannot make change without young people's brilliance, is basically what I'd like to say. So I'm going to invite, I think we have time here. I'm going to invite two other amazing colleagues and friends to share their reflections. And maybe I'll call on Ashley Burnett first. Ashley has also been an instrumental part of Transform Education, a youth advocate herself, and just a brilliant human being. So Ashley, can I turn it over to you if you're there?
Yes, thank you so much, Yona. Can you all hear me clearly? My Wi-Fi has been a bit spotty. Yeah. I feel quite emotional, and just incredibly grateful to be in this space with everyone. Having read the report and now like seeing the stories and hearing everyone speak, it's just deeply inspiring, and it really, affirms how important your vision is in creating an inclusive world. And I really feel determined more than ever, especially given the current state of the world and just everything that seems to be rolling back. But you are giving us hope. No more than ever, I think work like this has to be seen and heard and acted upon. And what stood out to me most, and I think it was referred to by every video and listening to the speakers as well, is how clearly the root causes of the violence that a lot of us face, these inequalities, these injustices are not just accidental, right? They are on purpose and they're upheld by patriarchal ideologies, greed, and power. But I think this report and this work is more than just a reflection of harm, but it's a call to action and a source of hope. It reminds us that change is possible and that we as activists, you as activists, as advocates, have the power to really transform the spaces that we are working in, the communities we belong to, and the systems we challenge. And the message is really clear. Education has to be more than just about access. It has to be gender transformative, actively dismantling harmful norms and replacing them with justice, equity, love, and care. And we really cannot afford to lose momentum right now. Of course, we need to take the time to mourn and to feel. But I think just seeing this work and how the pain and the hurt catalyzes action, I think that's super important. And we really cannot afford to be complicit in the violence that we are working to end. And this came through so clearly in this work that oftentimes when we do get into spaces in INGOs and moving away from grassroots work, we kind of lose our spark and we kind of can become a part of the system, but we really cannot afford to do that. And I think one of the things that, made me reflect on is how do we really hold the root and pull it out and then plant, new seeds of transformation. And one of the things that I really truly believe in is gender transformative comprehensive sexuality education, which really allows us to address the root causes of this type of violence, of these type of inequalities, and really seek to build new positive attitudes and just respect and kindness. And I think that's really important. And, this report is a testament of the power of youth-led advocacy. And, now it's up to us as stakeholders in different ways, for funders to really invest in this work and to support young people. They know what they want. We know what we want. And it's loud and clear. So now it's time to act. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ashley. No, I totally agree that we need to take leading change on the road with funders. I mean, I feel like I wish there was more funders here today. I'm not sure if there are, but this is what funders need to hear, and this is what funders need to invest in. Claudia, are you there? Can I call on you to share your reflections, please?
Myself, and I can video. Oh, okay. Great. Thank you very much. I'm practically, I was going to say I was falling off my chair, but actually I think I have fallen off my chair. This has been such an inspiring session. And really, I think May said it in her in their digital story of being part of something bigger, and that has been such a profound part of listening to the everyday stories and then the bigger stories and where we need to go with this. Thank you so much, all of you, and Catherine, thank you for sharing the report, which I had a chance to read and savor and really think about the high level recommendations and then the grassroots of how they all come together. I'm in a somewhat of an enviable position of being part of a large group who are trying right now to implement a project called Transform, engaging with young people for social change. And so much of what we've heard this morning is like just so significant. We're about to head into the first youth summit of transnational summit of this project in about 10 days, and bringing youth from 6 or 7 countries to South Africa to kind of think through how do we, as part of the bigger picture, disrupt gender norms, and where, what does that look like in the context, especially of participatory visual methodologies, which we saw in these beautiful digital stories. And I think that what has been so important listening today is thinking about how the pieces that we're working on at sort of a transnational level can go back to the local levels. And this whole notion of sustainability is just so critical. And so at a high level, there's some key sustainable moments that we can look at, but taking that back into communities, and how do you sustain this work over time? And I think the examples we've had today of grassroots youth-led organizations is really, really critical. And my head is just buzzing with trying to think through how can the representatives from these various sites who are coming to Durban go back to their to Sierra Leone, Nigeria, Mexico, Malawi, Canada, to think through where can a project, or how can a project support this kind of youth-led work, and what kinds of youth-led organizations can we really really help people imagine. I love the idea of dream projects. So maybe just to leave off on leave this about like what next, or what could we be doing. I think we are absolutely at a moment of funding globally that it is absolutely critical to support this work. I was speaking to colleagues in South Africa this morning who are devastated by the huge financial crunch to organizations of any sort in terms of health and education. And so being able to try to mobilize this work at a local level is going to be really critical. We have some wonderful examples, I think, from Indigenous youth in Canada who have one group did a report in 2023 called Labor of Love to really interrogate who and how can youth groups be supported. The Canadian government pledged in a call to action number 66 of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission to support youth groups. And I think that kind of high-level legislation, or that high-level protocol, needs to filter right across, down, across, and over. So what can we be doing? I'm really thinking more about how can we take those kinds of pieces and really try to think through how May's notion of a bigger picture and that bigger piece can be supported by funders and by people who are in funding positions. So thank you very much. And thank you again for the report and the wonderful digital stories.
Thank you so much, Claudia. I really wish we had more time to discuss and hear all of your perspectives, but Natasha has put in the chat a Google form, and we'd really appreciate it if you could share your thoughts with us through the Google form. And here are the questions that we're going to ask you to reflect on. I am going to hand it to Farah to wrap us up. Farah, over to you.
Thank you, Yona, and to all of our allies and partners in this room who continue to meaningfully partner with young feminist movements. Thank you to each of you for showing up and listening to our work. It means so much to us. This research, I think, makes one thing very clear, that gender transformative education is not a faraway goal or a long-term plan, but it is an immediate and urgent necessity. But this transformation also requires collective efforts. We cannot do this alone, and we need meaningful intergenerational support, sustained funding, and collaboration that amplifies our voices and lets us do what we do. To all of you here today, I hope you take this as your call to action. Please support youth led initiatives, not just in words, but in resources, and let us collectively dismantle gender inequality and inequity and move beyond performative engagement. To my young fellow feminist activists, my education transformers, thank you for your beautiful stories and all your consistent and powerful efforts to transform education. You all are unstoppable. And finally, I want to extend our deepest thanks to the University of Windsor, and most of all to Dr. Vanner and her team. They demonstrated what intergenerational research and partnership can look like in practice and what most, if not all, activists are asking for. And so, thank you for standing with us in this fight for gender transformative education. Over to you, Catherine.
Well, my heart is exploding. Thank you all for joining us today. Most to our youth presenters who have just brought this home in a way that just makes my heart sing. I am going to also just take this moment to thank, we have 5 co-hosts for this session who have all brought unique gifts that made this come together so beautifully. I want to specifically mention Ife Wang and Angela McDonald, who have been working in the background to make everything go smoothly. And beyond that, I will just say thank you for sharing your time and your stories with us today. This has been a wonderful event, and I'm thankful to close it off, but we will invite your thoughts further in the Google Forms, and we'll share the results of all of your reflections, along with the project report and all of the digital stories, which you can see on our website if you want to learn more. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a great day.